April 1999, Atlanta Motor Speedway. While most people were partying like it was 1999, I had set my sights on becoming a race car driver. If you remember from my previous video on the other channel about the Texas air races and what an awesome father I had that gave me the opportunity to fly T-34s in air combat, not once, but multiple times. After getting sick the first time, I had overcome it and was determined to become a fighter pilot and was even looking at an appointment to the Air Force Academy. However, shortly after this, I had an unfortunate appointment with an optometrist that told me I would never fly in the military, commercial airliners, or anything professionally, and I would be lucky to fly as a civilian because of excessive astigmatism. So, with a potential Air Force Academy appointment in the works, I gave up the dream. I let them tell me no. And instead, I set my sights on racing. I decided I wanted to be a NASCAR driver. We'd gone to a handful of races, the first being Talladega in the early 90s was my first NASCAR experience. I got a really bad sunburn, and we didn't stay for the whole race. After my mom died in 1995, my dad bought a motorhome because of my special needs brother. He thought that was the best way for us to travel. So in 1998, we went up to Colorado to watch the newly formed Truck Series race at Pikes Peak, along with the K&N West Series. It was a good time, and every time I watched a NASCAR event, I wanted to be in a race car. So after realizing I couldn't be a fighter pilot, I wanted to race. There weren't a whole lot of tracks in Louisiana, and I couldn't convince my dad to buy or build a race car. So I did what any other kid would do in the country. I set up a racetrack in our pasture and made laps on my four-wheeler constantly, nonstop, all the time, just around and around practicing racing. So every now and then my neighbor with his four-wheeler would race me, but for the most part, I was doing solo laps. I even took my dad's truck out there one time, which he actually approved. He just had to wash it off and it was fine. So in 1999, I turned 16 and I was actually old enough to do a racing school. And I thought this was going to be my big break. Speed Tech Auto Racing School, run by Randy Baker, had a class in April at the famed Atlanta Motor Speedway. Day one, I was ready to go. We did the driver's meeting and then rode along with an instructor, and then we swapped seats and the instructor rode with us to show us the racing line. After that, we were cut loose solo. Now, granted, the only experience I had driving a manual transmission was a Kubota tractor. Which is not quite the same. So I wasn't really great with shifting. But once you get going in gear, it's no big deal. The first couple laps, they had to throttle me back.
I'm dropping the hammer.
No, you're not.
In fact, they black flagged me and told me to come in because I was basically flooring it on the straightaways and then idling around the turn, because my other racing experience was NASCAR Racing 2 around Atlanta Motor Speedway with the Cup cars. And I didn't have a wheel. All I had was a yoke that I used for Flight Simulator and a set of rudder pedals.
There's an accident in turn 2. There's an accident in turn 2.
That was my only experience with Atlanta Motor Speedway, and I did what I thought was right. They brought me in and said, hey, look, we're in a crawl, walk, run kind of deal. So we don't want you flooring it and then letting off. We can hear you. We didn't have radios in the cars at the time. It was all flags and hand signals and stuff like that. So they said, hey, look, bring it up to 4,500 RPM and just keep it there the whole way around the track. Get used to the racing line. So I did, and slowed down significantly. But one of the stories they told me was that Jeff Gordon had been at the Buddy Baker school. And one of the things that impressed them the most about him was that he was super conservative, starting off slowly and then building his way up. And that was one of the things that I took with me, was that you don't have to necessarily go all out at first and be super aggressive. You can throttle back and take your time to get up to speed. So I did that all day, made some passes. Every time they would take somebody around the track, I would get passed, and it would get kind of frustrating. But I thought it went really well. And then at the end, they said, hey, look, you're actually doing pretty well tomorrow. We're going to put you in the truck. Now, the difference between the trucks and the cars were all detuned, derated, 400 horsepower. They weren't full-up cars. The truck, on the other hand, the Craftsman Truck Series was a very new series at the time, and the truck was actually a no-kidding Craftsman Truck Series truck. And they didn't let everybody do it, or at least that's what they told me. So the next day when they put me in the truck, I was pretty honored. So I took their advice and started out very slowly. And as I came back, there was I don't remember if it was a oil temperature or a water temperature issue, maybe either not coming up to temp or getting too hot, but I had to come back into the pits. And they were really impressed with that. They were like, oh, hey, he's actually looking at his gauges, 16 years old. He's actually paying attention to what we're telling him. So I went back out and slowly built up speed. Got really comfortable, really loved driving it a lot more than the car. And so when the end of the day came around, Randy Baker, the owner of the school, said, okay, we're going to go one-on-one. I want to show you some stuff. And it was awesome. I just had such a great time. We started out, I didn't understand how close distances were to gauge distance, so I'm really far behind him, but I'm following him. Eventually, I'll move up the distance, but it was here that, and again, no radio, so it's all hand signals for pass, point bys, and stuff like that. But I would follow him around for a few laps, and he'd point me by, and then he'd follow me around, and he'd get right up on me and let me see what the draft is like and how they can take the air off your spoiler and all the little kind of racing techniques. But he was also looking at my racing line to see how he can make me faster.
Yeah.
And then he effortlessly passes me like I'm standing still, and I get back behind him, get some more laps, and we kind of do that for a while. And I ended up doing, I think, 80 or 90 laps total in both days. It was really an awesome time, and I came back from that just feeling like this is what I want to do. I wanted to drive race cars because, you know, my other dream had been taken by an optometrist, and this was going to be the next thing I did. A really cool experience. I was really fortunate. That was my time driving a NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series truck and NASCAR on Atlanta Motor Speedway. Atlanta's still my favorite track, and I would go back to the Atlanta Motor Speedway for the first time 20 years later, this time in a T38 doing the flyover for the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500, which was a great honor and opportunity, and we had a lot of fun doing that flyover. My dad had his flaws. I mean, I'm not going to say he didn't, but he was somebody that always provided for his kids. He had a special needs child that he had to take care of, which was rough, and then to do it after his wife dies is even a bigger deal. Luckily, we had my stepmom was there, and I think that, you know, some people say, well, you know, spoiled rich kid. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a rich kid. We were middle class, but my dad gave me every opportunity he could. And we lived out in the country, in the middle of nowhere. Living expenses were low. My dad had a good job as a nursing home administrator, and my mom had died with also a good job. She was the CFO of a hospital. So he gave me the opportunities that he could, and I don't think he thought twice about it. I think he thought that, you know, it was a great thing for us, and I cherish those memories still today. I think I was very fortunate to have such an opportunity. I mean, obviously, it didn't turn into a racing career, but it certainly gave me confidence. Now, driving home, I was still the awkward 16-year-old that was pining over a girl that had no interest in me and didn't even know I existed while listening to Edwin McCain.
The strands in your eyes, the color them wonderful.
But still, with my later career in flying fighters and spatial awareness and being able to pilot vehicles, whether they're fighters or cars or whatever, it just set me up for success. And I was very fortunate that he did that for me. And I was very grateful. Later on, as a kid, I was horribly arrogant and not very grateful, but eventually I understood. And it was unfortunate that I lost my dad at such a young age. He was 65, but I didn't realize how awesome he was until he was gone, and that really sucked. But anyway, that's my time at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.